Welcome to another video here on my channel. Today we're going to take a look at how to fine-tune any sail for maximum performance. Tuning sails can be a daunting task and is often neglected by many windsurfers. And many people just rig up their sail without actually understanding what each of the settings do on the sail. I don't exclude myself from that because the first 5 years when I was windsurfing, I basically didn't have so much knowledge of sail tuning. And in the beginning it was more or less just left to chance whether I had a good day and the rig felt actually good or bad, because I didn't really understand what each of the components of the sail do. But after 15 years of windsurfing, I finally feel ready to explain to you guys my findings of how to fine-tune any windsurfing sail to perfection. Setting the downhole is probably the most important setting on your sail and determines the shape and characteristic of your entire sail. It not only determines how deep your sail is, but also how the leach of the sail is opening up. In windsurfing, there's a lot of times on the beach a discussion of how much loose leach is needed in the windsurfing sails. A lot of people have kind of a misconception that they look at the sail on the beach and the sail is flapping in the top a lot, and they basically just take a look at how the sail looks like when it's lying on the shore, but they don't think about how the sail is actually working when it's powered up, because the mast is bending and the sail looks a whole lot different when it's actually in sailing mode. The way you can kind of a little bit simulate how the sail looks like if it's under power is if someone is stepping on the bottom of the sail, while of course the boom is attached and someone is stepping on top of the sail, because this kind of simulates the mast how it is if it is under load. So the mast is actually twisting away from the sail, so this is really more how the sail will look on the water. And what you can see now is like this, the sail looks like it has a lot of downhaul, but when it comes under tension, you can see that the downhaul actually kind of disappears. So if a sail looks like it has a lot of downhaul on land, doesn't actually mean that it is the same way when it's actually sailing. To get a good grasp on the topic, let's actually look at why we need an open leach in a windsurfing sail and why we cannot just have a closed upper leach. The leach of the sail is the line that the back end of the sail draws. The luff, in contrast, is the line that the forward edge of the sail draws, so where we have the windsurfing mast in our case. You can either have an open or closed leach. An open leach means that the sail is twisting away at the top of the sail, whereas a closed leach, as the name suggests, means that the sail is not opening so much in the top. Generally, a closed leach gives more power and a better pointing ability, meaning that the sail goes better upwind. But it also makes the sail more difficult to handle, because the closed leach will create more side forces to leeward and give more pressure basically on your back leg and the fin. An open leach, in contrast, will give the sail less power, but make the sail much easier to handle, because the wind can basically just flow off the lower parts of the sail and you don't have so much side forces from the top end of your sail. Most windsurfing sails have a very open leach, with some exceptions. Let's look at the reasons why that is and in what cases you might want a more closed leach. You want to have a little twist or an open leach on all sails because the wind speed increases the higher up you go, meaning at the bottom end of your sail the wind speed is much slower than at the top in 4 or 5 meters of height. Even on a 4 to 5 meter high sail, this effect is notable. The different wind speeds at the bottom of your sail and at the top of your sail mean that the angle of the tack from the wind to the sail is different in the bottom compared to at the top. This is why we want the sail to twist away at the top, so that each section of the sail has the right angle of attack towards the wind. This difference in wind speed varies with which course you're on while sailing. The effect is greater when you're going downwind than it is if you're going upwind, meaning that if you sail mostly downwind, you want a sail that opens more in the top, compared to if you want to go upwind, you want a sail that is more closed in the top. Another reason why we want to have a more open leach in windsurfing is the human element, because the sail is not attached to any rope at the end that is just connected to a boat, but we are handling the power of the sail ourselves. So if the sail can sheet out and release some excess power, it makes it much more manageable for us and will allow us to hold the sail in the same position throughout our whole run, just by shifting our body weight and keeping the pressure on the sail. A closed leach will give the sail more power in the top of the sail, so there's a higher leverage to your body if the power is coming from the top end of your sail. This can work well in lighter wind because it will give a lot of excess power in lighter winds, which is why, for example, you want a raceboarding sail where you're sailing in very light winds and a lot of time upwinds. You want to have a more closed leach to give you the maximum power. But in stronger winds, sails, this will make the sail feel more draggy and hard to handle. Now, with understanding what an open and closed leech will do in our sails, we can finally get towards fine-tuning our sails. Alright, I have 3 sails here to show you how I fine-tune my sails. First up, we have my full-on race slalom sail, the sail that I use for slalom races and also for speed sailing, with all the cambers and a very deep profile. Then I have as well a camberless free race sail, basically, the AC0. And lastly, I have a free wave sail. And basically on all 3 sails, the principles of how I tune the sails stays the same. So let's get into it. Action, Klappe. Alright, so now I'm going to set the downhaul of all 3 sails, starting out with the AC1. And for me, it's basically, I have so much routine that I do it by feeling. I can kind of feel what is the perfect downhaul point. But there is also some indicators basically in the sail that will tell you whether you have the right downhaul or not. Alright, so now I put enough downhaul so that I already put the cambers onto the mast. And as you can see now, the sail is in a mode where it has absolutely no downhaul, no opening of the leech, but a very deep profile. And the final shape of the sail is coming into it when I pull the final downhaul now. And sails are usually very sensitive on downhaul, meaning that you have a range of sometimes only like half a centimeter of downhaul where the sail works optimally. And let's now figure out how we can find this perfect setting. Alright, so here we have a sail where we mostly sail downwind. It's aimed at downwind slalom sailing, speed sailing, so we want a leech that is opening pretty quickly. You can see here on this batten, which is batten number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, from here the sail already starts falling away. The leech is starting to open. And this will give us a lot of control, handling and very little side forces when sailing downwind. So when you're pulling the downhaul, this is actually what I look for. The one point is that the sail is opening from batten 5, falling nicely down like it is here. The other indicator is that I usually use that I want the sail to open to about 1 width like this from the end of the mast pocket in the 3rd panel. So let's count from the top. Here we have panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, and here is the end of the mast pocket. From here, one width like this. Of course, the exact point in the sail where the loose leech should go to varies from brand to brand and from sail to sail. So this is really, you have to play with the setting and find out for yourself where the perfect setting is. You can also kind of see it by the line of the battens that we will get into next. And another thing I want to hint at is a lot of sails have this point in the sail that is like a trim indicator. Don't trust this too much, because usually this trimming indicator is put by the factory, by the guys that produced the sails, not the sail makers. And they usually just put it somewhere, and it can vary by 20 centimeters even from sail to sail. So if you feel that it's not working with a setting in the sail, just try different settings. Alright, so here we have the free race sail, the no cam, but the principle about the downhaul remains the same that it is with a full-on race sail. So I'm also pulling the downhaul, and you can see the sail is also opening up from batten 5. It's not fully downhauled yet. So how can I tell? I can see in the top that the loose leech basically goes only halfway through the sail. And I want it to be about 2/3, which is again the hand width from this line here in the top. So I know I need more downhaul. So again in this sail you can see right here is where the leech starts opening. From here we still get power from the sail, and here the sail starts falling away. And same here in the top, like on the full-on race sail. We don't really have a mast pocket, so we need to kind of estimate it. You can see it's right here. You can actually see it pretty well in the sail to where the loose leech goes. So from this part we still get power from the sail. This part will be twisting away. Then lastly we have a free wave sail right here. And this sail is, the principle is the same, but the sail is a little bit different because it has only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 battens, unlike the 7 battens that the free race and the slalom sail have. But you still want to apply the same principles, although this sail will have a little bit more of a closed leech compared to the other two. Okay, so this sail is more or less a wave sail, so you want to have a little bit more power from a more compact sail, because you're not sailing sizes like 7 meters here. So you want to get a lot of power from this 5.5. And how do you achieve this? Is by having a little bit more of a closed leech. It still has an open leech if we compare it with a sail from like sailing, but compared to slalom or free race sails that are aimed more at speed, the leech is a little bit more closed. Because another aspect is that with a wave sail you also want to be able to go upwind quickly with relatively small sail size. Next up, we're going to talk about battens, because battens structurally support the sail. If you wouldn't have any battens in the sail would just basically do anything and would not be controllable. So they give really a lot of structure to the sail. And it is super important to set up your battens correctly, because you can do a lot of things wrong. And I want to go over what you want to achieve with the battens and what are probably some common misconceptions of how people set up battens that really basically kill the sail and make it feel dead. So I'm taking out a batten here out of one of our sails, because I want to show you how a batten is actually shaped and what it's supposed to do. Alright, so what do we want to achieve with the batten tension in the sail? Basically a sail batten is just supposed to follow the natural profile of the sail, not pull more profile into it or decrease it. So what you can see here, if I bend the batten, that it has a lot of profile towards the front, because there the batten is thinner and can bend more. Towards the end you don't want the batten to bend too much. What happens if you over tighten the batten is that you have profile even here all the way towards the end. And if you have profile towards the end, the wind cannot flow off the sail here, but it will create turbulence and the sail will feel more draggy and heavy. So generally you want to avoid to over tension the battens, because the mistake that I see a lot of people make is that they understand not really what the batten tension is supposed to do. So they look at the sail, and like in this one you can see there's some wrinkles in the sail now. So they try to apply so much tension towards the battens that all of the wrinkles go out of the sail. But these wrinkles really don't make up a lot of the performance of the sail. And if you over tension the battens, what happens is, as I showed, that the batten gets profile here towards the end. So in this part. And what you actually want in most parts of the sail is an S shape of the batten, so that the batten has profile towards the front, but in the end, under pressure, it will have curvature towards the opposite side. So the way you can imagine is that the wind is flowing through the sail, and you don't want the wind to flow out right here. You actually want the wind to flow out somewhere like here. And this we achieve by S-shaping the battens. So this natural S shape can only occur if you don't have too much tension on the battens. And if we go over the battens one by each, the lowest batten, batten number 7, we always count from the top, you always want to have some profile to close the sail. Then this one you actually want pretty natural, so a little bit of tension, take out the wrinkles but not too much. And then all of these battens here, this one, this one, this one and this one, you want zero tension. So what I always do when I get a sail new and I want to trim the battens is I take out all of the tension of the batten first. So take it all out. Now I feel there's absolutely no tension here. And then I tighten it on all these battens up towards batten number 2 until I just can barely feel pressure. I take out the first little wrinkles, but not more than that. So maybe from the first moment I feel tension, the maximum I turn is 1 rotation. So for me, here I feel the first tension, just like 3/4 of a turn, maximum 1 turn, not more than this. And this I repeat for all the battens, from this one, this one, this one, this one, batten number 2, until all the way to the top, where I want actually the same like on the lowest batten, a little bit of tension again. Because I want the wind to kind of flow out of the sail here and not here. If you pull tension on the batten is basically coming up on the sail. And by giving it a little bit of tension here, the wind can flow out here and not towards the top of the sail. How can we check if we applied the correct batten tension? The way that we can check tension to the battens is if we look from here, from basically the clue end of the boom. You want all these battens to fall down in a line, and then the last batten is coming up again. So how can we see if one batten is over tensioned or under tensioned? Well, we can just check if, like from this batten to this batten over there, it is a straight line. If one batten is like this, coming out of this line, coming up, then you have too much tension on the batten. So let's actually simulate this. I'm just going to pull way too much tension on one batten. This one. So let's say I want to take out all the wrinkles out of this batten. So I think I want a lot of profile to have more power, and I'm pulling a lot of tension. The first sign that you can see is that the batten is now actually going into the sail, so it's making a dent. This is already a sign that you have way too much tension, but let's tension it even more, just as an example. And now, if we look from here, you can see this is no longer a line. This batten is coming up way too much. And just by checking from the top of the boom, you can even have a person pushing down on the first two battens, then you see it even better. You can see, shit, this batten is sticking out. So what will happen is that the wind cannot release here. And the wind will push against this batten, create turbulence, and the sail will feel very draggy, hard to handle, with a lot of backhand pressure on the fin, and this will make you slow overall. So I'm going to take out the tension here again. So yeah, just looking at the sail now, I can see that something is off. And you can see this batten is really sticking out of that line, and this will ruin the flow of the sail. So you have to release the pressure again. And in the same manner like I did with the free race sail, you can check the batten tension on basically all sails, on the slalom sail, on this free wave sail. Also here, we want to look from the boom that these battens are making a line, and then the last batten can come up a little bit again. And I check it the same way on my slalom sail. The only sail where I would say there's an exception is actually the freestyle sail. Because a freestyle sail, you don't want the leech, because if the sail is flapping around, when you hold the sail basically in reverse, so with the leech into the wind, of course if you have a lot of flapping here, the wind will grip it and it will be super hard to do the maneuver. So for this reason, the freestyle sails, you want not really any opened leech. Alright, the last thing we're going to talk about in sail tuning is specific to no-cam sails and to camber sails. Let's start off with the specifics of the camber sails, because as the name suggests, we have cambers here, obviously. And what cambers do is they actually lock in the profile into the sail, because they attach directly to the mast, so the profile of the batten is even more stable compared to a no-cam sail. And you want to have enough tension on the cambers. So basically the length of the camber to the batten must be correct, and this is where spaces come into play. So the way I check if I need any spaces in my sail is I put the sail on its back so that the lee side is coming up, and then I push right here. I can feel where the camber ends, and now I can feel, yeah, it's pretty stiff. If I had a loose camber, this would like bend in, and I check it for all three cambers. Also here, very stiff, and also here very stiff. So what I have is that all three cambers have an equal stiffness to them. So if one were loose, I would basically add a spacer so that I put some more distance in between. If one camber were way too stiff, I might even sand down the camber so that I lose a little bit of distance. Because camber sails, of course, are a little bit more finicky to tune, because if this is not correct, you will have problems with the rotation. So if a camber is either too stiff or too loose compared to the other ones, there's like an imbalance basically. And then let's say, for example, this camber was super loose, but this and this one were super stiff, it would make the sail very hard to rotate. As you can see, I have a similar amount of pressure on all the cambers, so the sail is rotating really nicely. Okay, so now we have the free race sail without any cambers, but also here it is important to tune the outhaul correctly. So let's talk about where the batten should end relative to the mast. And what I want to do with a no-cam sail is that the batten here is basically ending on half the width of the mast. Some people, they pull a lot of outhole because they want the batten to end here before the mast. But the problem you have is that you want the sail to be able to create profile here. And if you pull too much and the batten is ending here, the sail will not get as much profile and therefore have less power. In contrast, if the batten is going even over the mast, it will make the sail super hard to rotate because the batten has to go all the way around the mast. So the perfect setting here is if the batten ends right here, about half the width of the mast. All right, that was probably 1 hour of talking for me. I hope you found a lot of useful information in this video and it helps you understand better what you can do to fine-tune your sails. And I think it's very important that you actually understand what each of the components, and like adding downhole, adding outhole, what all of these components do to the sail, to then figure out how you can tune it to perfection. All these settings, of course, you can play around with it. I would really advise you to just try different settings, just vary by like 3-4 millimeters each time and really figure out where the exact setting is where you feel super comfortable, because only by changing the settings from time to time you will get a feeling for what it does and find the perfect setting for you. So yeah, that's it. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel to not miss any of the future videos. We're going to do a lot of tutorials here in the next weeks, so you can look forward to that. Thanks for tuning into this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.